Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Atari, many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. This is part of the e-commerce mastery series where top sellers teach you what really works to boost your e-commerce business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, where entrepreneurs of 6, 7, 8-figure businesses come together live and in person every few months to solve their biggest business challenges and leave with lifelong friendships. Check out Rise25.com. It's run by myself and co-founder John Corcoran. It's application only. Today I'm excited. I was excited when I have Chicago entrepreneurs. Today we have Peter Rahal, co-founder of RxBar. They manufacture whole food protein bars with a no BS value proposition, since the base of the bar only includes whole food ingredients like egg whites, almonds, cashews, and dates. They sell more than 175,000 bars per month and can be found in Trader Joe's across the country, as well as Wegmans Grocery, Whole Foods, and I think over 4,000 other places. Peter, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, thank you for the introduction. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so we're gonna dig into the history of RxBar, but I was asking a fun fact, and you started to go into, it sounded like an amazing story, so I didn't want to hear it, but a fun fact when you started. No office.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
No office. So we've always believed we want to have outstanding customer service and we want to be really easy to work with, and you need a phone number, right? And so we didn't have an office. Jared and I were in our apartments, and then later we moved to a small little manufacturing facility on the west side. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just put my cell phone on it. So for 2 years, I had my cell phone on every impression or website. And it was just funny, the whole business was ran through my cell phone for 2 years. So that's an interesting fact. Whereas, we didn't have to do that, but it was important to be available.
So can you tell if someone was coming in from the business or was a friend? How would you answer the phone?
No clue. Just answer every call.
So you answer it just, how did you answer the phone in those 2 years?
Hello, this is Peter. Welcome to RxBar. It's funny. But.
And so friends knew when they called, you may just be answering because it's the business.
Yeah, and I believe there's no bad solicitation, right? Everyone's a customer, so I embraced it.
So why was it so important for you to have the phone number? Because I know big businesses, which it still surprises me that they don't have any phone number. You can't talk to a human being.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of our value prop, right? No BS. We want to make doing business with us as easy as possible, and right. The phone number had to be there even early on. To this day, we take calls at all hours, and even before when we got a phone, and then those phone numbers when we left the office were forwarded to our cell phones. I think it's when you're building something great, every interaction matters, and so you just got to be available. It's part of the territory, right, of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
If a customer has a question, I want them to be able to ask me.
Yeah, so, I love that. So talk about the first batch you made in the kitchen, because you created these. You started just making them on your own, right?
Yeah. So pretty humble beginnings. Jared Smith, co-founder of, we just started really simply. We always bought commercial ingredients, which was good, and my background's in the raw material business. So we just started in the kitchen, just trying, failing, and that was back in November 2012.
What were you trying when you say failing? What ingredients were you using that you're this is not going to work at all?
Well, we always knew the direction we wanted to go from the product positioning, which is what it is today. So basically a fruit nut protein bar. Mm-hmm. And it was basically just getting the formula right? Right. Just trial and error, and making it taste good, right? So that's the hardest part.
Right. Right. It could be healthy and have the ingredients, but then no one wants to eat it.
Yeah, and that to this day, taste is the main driver for anyone's decision. Nutrition is important, but if it doesn't deliver taste, no one's going to buy it. Mm-hmm. So we understood that early on. So. Yeah, just trial and error.
So what were some of those ingredients that you knew could not, even though maybe they were healthy and they were good to be at the bar, that you just could not include in there?
Yes, So we have a pretty, like, from the beginning had a very firm, like, standard of ingredients. So, you know, we only could use whole foods. So we weren't, like, putting different syrups in or, like, sweeteners. So it's really just getting that right. There's been some flavor failures, I would say. They're more common. Like, for example, we wanted to do a pumpkin spice earlier, and pumpkin's kind of, like, hard, actually. And we tried bacon, like, just, you got to try it. But the bacon was terrible. The pumpkin early on was terrible. We honed it in.
You have a pumpkin one now, right?
Yeah, and we finally, it took 2 years, but the first version was, like, not good. But yeah, it's the one we have today on the market is awesome.
So take me through, I know you have some products there. Take me through a little history of RxBar.
Yeah. So again, we had humble beginnings, started in my parents' basements, like commercially. We had we went to market with blueberry and coconut cacao. It was a pure chocolate. And then originally another chocolate one. And because of production capacity issues, we cut the chocolate one and we just went with 2. And so we had those for about 3 months. And really the big challenge for us was scaling manufacturing. So like we went batch to sale, right? Batch to sale, growing it.
So how many would you produce in the original batches?
Sorry, I got a reminder came up. So our original batch, we first bought a 20-quart mixer, which was like, I think it's like 20 pounds of dough. And then we went to a 140 quart, which was, I think our batch sizes were 70 pounds. And we would do like 10 batches a day.
How many bars would that make about?
That would make like 6,000.
Wow.
6,500. Yeah. So that was great because then you could just learn the process and be really intimate with the product every day, touching it, seeing it, how it changes. Which is really important, especially for entrepreneurs. Like I feel like you have to be really like use the word like intimate with the product. Like you have to know ins and outs from the whole process. So for us, that was like critical to scale the manufacturing.
What was the setup like? Was it you and your co-founder Jared, and were you the only people producing it, or were there other people helping out?
So it was Jared and I on the front end, and then we would have 12 people supporting us on the team, helping us make it as well. So what's your process, Peter, would you sell them ahead of time? Would you have a certain amount sold, or would you just go, we're going to sell these things, let's just produce as many as humanly possible and go out and sell them? Well, we went batch to sale. We didn't carry much. We had no cash, right? We didn't start the business we didn't raise money or anything. So it was Jared and I's money. And so we only made product to sell it. We didn't really carry much inventory. So that's how for the first 2 years, that's how we operated. And just went, gym to gym selling it, grocery store, whatever we could.
So you were the ultimate hustler.
Yes. Like we literally would spend the morning making it every day, the PM packing it, and then in the free time servicing and selling. Like that was it for over a year. So we did the hustle.
What would the packaging look like then? You have a few to show. Show a few.
So here's the original.
It's pretty good.
So this is important. It was like we didn't. I'll put you right here. We didn't have any resources to buy like in a proper like horizontal flow wrapper. So we just bought pre-made packaging. Right. It was expensive, but we didn't have the resources to buy, proper bar equipment. So we just like any good entrepreneur, you just had a problem, didn't have resources, so we found a really reasonable solution. And it's funny, in the beginning, this was a point of differentiation.
So you have to stick those on separately, each of those, like...
Yeah. So 2 labels.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that was very labor intensive. We had one girl just sitting there all day doing that, so I totally empathize with her.
So it'd come off the line. Someone would have to stick it in the package, or how would it get like sealed? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, these are pre-made pouches, and you would just literally hand pack it and then seal it, and that was it.
And then someone would have to stick both the labels on each of the sides.
Yeah. Well, we would do that before because it's hard.
Right?
Yeah, because when there's a product in it, it's not easy to apply, but when it's flat and empty, it's easier. So.
What was the next evolution? So you have this huge mixer. You're making 6,000 bars. They're coming off. You're labeling them, hand labeling them, and sealing it. What was the next evolution of the process that you improved in the manufacturing and?
So like the real challenge is always just scaling sales and production. That's like a really challenging thing. And for us, we had to commercialize and like make the product in a bigger way. So that was like the next chapter for us, was like, how do we commercialize this? How do we make this so we can focus on building the brand and focus on other aspects besides like the manufacturing component?
Working 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So show me one of the other ones, the next versions, because I know you have another one sitting there of after the original, yeah.
So then here's like the next version, which is a properly like made bar, stable. So.
Yeah, and so what's right now your design and your label is so clean and clear and minimalist. I love it. And what you do differently is you obviously list the ingredients on the front. Most people just live it. You can see the fine print in the back. Yours are on the front. So do you have a current version of that design?
Yeah, so here's current.
Yeah. So at what point did you come to this and you changed the design?
So when we got out of the weeds, right? Like got out of the exhausting day-to-day manufacturing and just able to hire some help, we got time to like think about it. And there's a really good example here. Is like, so Jared and I designed this product, this art and everything on like PowerPoint.
Right.
Jared and I are not designers, but we had no money again, and so we had to like.
You do what you have to do.
And for us, it was just like, all right, you heard the expression like you have an ugly baby.
Sure.
Like we realized like, hey, our baby that we've been building is ugly, and it was time to like give it a good facelift.
Did someone tell you that, or did you realize that?
We realized it.
You did.
We had some good resources help us, but we knew, right? And the common thing like on the back of this bar was this equation of like three egg whites, X dates, almonds, so like what you see today.
Right.
And it was just early on we could tell like, hey, that's like a powerful value prop, and like that really resonated with our customers. And so we're like, we can't win on appetite appeal, right? Like egg whites aren't appetizing, so it's like, well, let's lead with the value prop on the product. And like we had people when we were in the beginning directions of that artwork, like we're like, don't do that, it's a mistake. You need a big chocolate cake or like a big piece of coconut or something. And like we're like, we can't do that. Everyone else does that, and that's not why people buy it. Like it's a natural protein bar essentially. So
you put the differentiator front and center.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you find someone to like carry that vision? Because you have that vision in your head, but what comes out on the design could be very different.
Yeah, and so we made a really good brief. We worked with a local agency that was awesome, and they did an amazing job bringing it to life. Great people, right? That's the key.
So here, talk about door to door. You'd go CrossFit gym to CrossFit gym. Yeah. So what worked? Because that takes some guts, right? You're just going in. You have like a bag of bars selling from gym to gym.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt. Like,
you're good.
Just you open for business and you need sales, right? Like, it isn't going to be. They're not going to come to you. Right. So you have to just make it happen, and it might be uncomfortable, but like you just have to do it. And for us, there was no other option, right? Like we have to sell the product, so we went door to door, and we knew our customers, we knew who wanted it, so we would just, CrossFit gyms were our DNA and where we started. So,
what's your sales pitch? You go into a CrossFit gym. What do you tell them?
It's a good question. Well, when we started, there wasn't any retail in CrossFit. Like most of the gyms didn't have it, so there was almost like you had to sell the product, but you also had to sell the idea of, hey, you should offer,
make it even harder
to your customer, but you should offer some goods. Like you're doing a great job working them out, adding a lot of value, but they're hungry afterwards. Like
for sure,
where we would fit in. So there was like two problems we had to solve in the beginning, but now it's different. Now
did that help you, the fact that they didn't have anything else, or hurt you?
So there was a little barrier in the beginning, but in general, retrospectively, it was a good thing, I think. But the sell-in was arguably harder, in 2013 than it is today. But overall, it was a good thing.
Yeah. And also, the CrossFit people are very paleo friendly, and yours is paleo, right?
Yep, it's compliant with paleo.
And how hard is it to get I don't know if it's called certified Whole30 or how hard is that?
Yeah, there's no certification. It's the Whole30 program. It's basically, there's some parallels with paleo, but it's the Melissa and Dallas Hartwig's program. So if your product confines to no added sugar, no dairy, no gluten, it can conform to that diet or that.
Yeah, because they have a huge rabid fans, and if you look at the post for RxBar, there's I don't know if there's hundreds of comments, but it's people are really into that.
Yeah. Well, because the reason why is it's similar to CrossFit. Whole30 works. People will get results, and so when you have results like that, you talk about it. You want to share, and when you change someone's life, you want to tell your loved ones. You want to tell your friends. So that's why it's become so popular. And similar to CrossFit, people who try, bodybuilding or running and triathlons or whatever, and then do something as intense and functional as CrossFit, and they actually get really good results and meet some people, they become passionate and share it. So there's a kind of a common thread, I would say, between those two.
Yeah.
Results.
Peter, so at the time when you started RxBar, what were you doing at the time?
I was working for a transportation startup, so a 3PL.
Okay. So was that Mondi Foods, or is that something completely separate?
Mondi Foods? No, so Mondi Foods was in Belgium. That was my first, job out of college.
Yeah. Because I saw that. Were you living in Belgium at the time?
Yeah.
So what were you doing?
So they were a red fruit processor. So
red fruit?
Yeah. So strawberries, raspberries, that segment of raw material. So we would take it and make it either juice concentrate, single strength puree, concentrated puree, IQF fruit. And then I was on sales and marketing side, thinking about application of the product, different segments to get into. So that was a great experience for me.
What did you learn working there?
Two real things. Again, it was my first formal job. I had obviously other jobs before, but after graduating school, one is culture, it was great to have a different lens of how other countries and people work.
Yeah.
But then the other component was just really understanding farm, the whole process at the back end, growers and where they how that part of the supply chain works. Yeah. And then that was really probably just understanding holistically that side of the business was the most valuable.
What did you see there in that process that most people don't see?
Quality matter, your inputs, so the raw material actually matters. So and it's kind of similar to nutrition, what you eat matters. And you can't go cheap.
Yeah, it gives you a unique perspective, right? Because if you didn't see that, because you probably think about that with obviously what goes into the RxBar.
Yeah, your ingredients, as soon as you start thinking of them as commodities, you're in trouble. They're not. There's definitely quality matters, and that's probably one of the most important things I've learned there.
How do they do business differently? You mentioned obviously it's in a different country than us here.
Yeah. Well, Belgium's interesting because it's it's French speaking, it's Flemish, there's German, and they're in a unique position where they're next to France, Germany, Holland, and in the UK. And it was just really interesting, the balance of cultures, and it was just cool that you see them all collide there, right? It was fun to be a part of, and then the way they do in America, we hustle, we work really hard here, and they're like, France is like a 39-hour work week, and they value they value life in a different way. Like, they want to have dinner, and like it's just a different culture. Whereas America, it's about like growing, building, always being better, like that American spirit.
There's more balance there.
Yes, well, yeah. And I'm speaking from an entrepreneur's perspective too,
For sure.
and also a very entrepreneurial family.
Yeah. You come from a line of entrepreneurs. So what were some of your family members? What businesses did they start?
So it's on both sides of my family. My mother's side, the Bowdens, my great uncle started Tampico. I'm sure I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a juice drink.
Yeah.
And they sold that business, I think, in the early 2000s. And then my grandfather, my mother's father, started Bodines, but before that, he was really early on with Home Juice, which was my great Leonard Haddad, who started that in Chicago. And then my father's side, my uncle's a race car driver, Bobby Rahal. He's gotten into like different car agencies, so BMW, Honda in Pittsburgh, and then my great uncle started Rahal Foods, or they formally changed. They were Hartog Rahal. So yeah, and like I grew up just in the food business, but just like working and learning.
What did you do early on? What were some of the jobs they made you do?
I would always just like sell. Like I was thinking about it. I was talking to my partner earlier. Like I would just like sell stuff in school. Like I would make skateboards and sell them, and then just commerce, right? Like just the transaction. I would just participate in that, and then there's some things I can't say on the record.
Use your imagination. I can make some guesses. So what did you want to be when you grew up in high school and college?
That's a good question. I wasn't like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I was very entrepreneurial. I just like wanted to control my own fate. Was there
a thought of I'm going to go into a family business, or is it always I'm going to start my own business?
Yeah, I thought I was going to go in, because we have a family business. I thought I was going to go in there. The timing of it didn't really work out, so I just like made my own. With Jared, we made our own business. And I don't know.
Yes.
It's hard to say.
I mean, because there's a long line there. And I want you to talk about team for a second. So it's you and Jared, right? So who are the next team members, key hires you have to make?
So like sales cures all, right? So
of course, from an entrepreneur standpoint.
That was our focus. And then, well, the big hit for Jared and I was like for the first year and a half, it was just us. We had some other help, but like from growing the business, it was just us. And once we were able to attract talent and like build a team, it was very clear that like that's what's going to take the business to the next level. And we've done a really good job adding to our teams. Like today we have 28 people directly working for us or with us. And like there's a direct consequence of like talent and growth. That's one thing I've observed. And and those people need a vision. Those people need a good culture to be a part of. And
I want you to talk about culture, right? Because you spoke to culture that I watched on another site, and I want you to talk about your view of culture when you started the company and then now, because there was a big difference there, right?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I always have to define what something means to fully understand it. And early on, like, I was like, oh, culture's a buzzword. Like, you'd read about it in Inc. or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's fucking, we don't have time for culture.
Right. I'm going
like,
gym to gym here. Like,
yeah,
what's
exactly.
the culture?
Time for culture.
Right.
But like, I didn't realize, like, Jared and I had our own culture. Like, but when it's two people, like, if I said something to a customer that Jared was like, no, he'd just slap my hand and be like, don't do that. I'd be like, all right, you're right. But when you grow from like to 10 people, then 15 people, like those values, you can't slap people's hand when they don't do something right. And so then I realized like, oh shit, we need to like formalize this. Like we're growing and I can't slap everyone's hands and vice versa. And so like for me, I was like, all right, what is culture? and then, I always look to how a nation operates, right? Like you look at France as a country, like they have a language, they have a food, they have a way they greet each other, like that's their culture. And like, so culture is like how you work, but it's also like how you live, and every company or organization, group of people need to have that. And also like the people on our team, like they need to know what the values are of our company and our organization. And it's just like really important, because it makes people feel safe. It gives people like guidelines almost of how to work, how to live, and how we work around here.
Yeah.
So
how did you formalize it?
I went to our story. I didn't want to make arbitrary like values, so I just like went back and looked at our story and like basically pulled some common patterns of our beliefs and like our values. And like one of, for example, like the phone number thing. Yeah. Like one of our values is a servant mindset.
It's
like
put your personal cell phone on.
Yeah.
No, right.
Yeah, but like servant leadership, servant mindset's one of our values, and that's not like I live that today. Like, I believe in servant leadership, and we walk it. So, we just went to our story to pull our values. And that was cool.
So what's another one? Yeah, that's interesting. It's not like you just came up and let's choose our values. You went back to the original story of how you live certain values, and then you pulled the value out of that story. So the cell phone. What were some other stories and what you pulled from them?
Yeah. So another really key value for us is like the pursuit of excellence. And I just think about like the journey our product has gone through. And that's like been my personal pursuit of just trying to, like my job is to make the best product possible. And I just look back at our history from, we used to be a 70-gram bar. We've gone down to 65 and 52 and lowered the price so it's more affordable. And then also like the versions, like the number of versions we've gone through, like, and then the different quality, we've improved the quality of the raw materials. So it's like a constant evolution, and it's the pursuit of excellence. And whatever function you're in, like that's part of our culture. Like we just hired a director of HR, and like her objective is like to professionalize, and we want to have the best HR department. Like that's how we think about things, and there's no wrong, just failure is okay if that's an outcome, but as long as you're pursuing excellence, that's something that's important to us.
Yeah.
Our values.
What have you seen with the most pronounced version change for a bar?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good point. So we originally made the product with dates and figs as like the binding source. We had different quality issues, and just like I look back like, why is it in? I guess
it's a tough business, man. I mean, there's when you're working with these whole food ingredients.
Yeah, like, and then for us, from a stability standpoint, like we need super consistent materials coming in. They can't vary, and we just had some quality issues. And then we were like, wait, and I just like look back like, why is it in there? Like less is more. That's the mindset I always have. Like, and so we substituted that and put cashews in. And we did that across the whole family. Like it made a better product. And when you think about it, like figs are much cheaper than cashews. Yeah. So it wasn't a cost decision. It was a quality decision.
Right.
And that's something that was a big clean change, hard change we did that was probably the most pronounced impact. And we didn't do a survey. We just knew it was the best for the product and our customers. And we just,
So what are the most popular flavors?
So chocolate sea salt, blueberry, coconut chocolate, peanut butter, mint chocolate, and their new one, maple sea salt, I think is.
Why did you start with blueberry? That's like I wouldn't have expected that. The first one of the first ones was the coconut chocolate one, right?
Coconut chocolate
and blueberry. Why blueberry?
All right, so there's like this is how we think about it. Is like there's two types of people: people that like chocolate, and then people like fruit.
Okay.
And
everyone likes chocolate, but
but some people like when you go like shopping for ice cream, some people like strawberry, and some people like that. Like I personally always like chocolate or peanut butter.
Right.
And so we just wanted the portfolio to have like attract those different people.
Gotcha.
So that was the rationale.
Yeah. So the name, how did you get RxBar? Was that available?
Yeah.
A 5-letter domain was available.
Yeah.
And so how did you decide on choosing the name RxBar?
Yeah, so
it's a great name.
Our DNA is in CrossFit, and it's a shorthand for health, right?
Yeah.
So for us, it was just like a natural connection.
So you guys just came up with it, and the domain was actually available. You didn't have to buy it off anyone.
Well, no, we had to pay for it, $1,000.
Okay, that's still it's a great value for that.
And it's funny, like retrospect, like $1,000 was a lot of money, right? And we were like, I remember Jared and I were just like arguing over like, all right, we're not arguing, just discussing if it's like RX-bar and like how like going cheap and getting that for $19. No, we're not going cheap on like the domain. That's important. So.
Yeah, for sure. Pricing. Talk about pricing for a second, because I find it with a bar like this, high quality ingredients. People want it obviously to be healthy and it tastes good, but they also don't want to pay a huge amount. So what's your thought process, and how do you price this?
Yeah, and the market determines it, right?
Yeah.
So you have your cost. I think your cost basis will really determine that, and the market will determine what you sell it for ultimately. Right. We feel we're a premium product, so we can hang on the higher end of the market. Yeah. $2.49. I don't see this product ever being 99 cents.
It can't be with the ingredients in there. It's impossible.
That's where a lot of people. That's where, like, as you scale, that's where a lot of times we can go. But for us, given our cost basis, I don't think that's ever feasible. And the thing about us, like, we won't. It's not on our agenda to get there.
Right.
And we won't ever like cut quality or cut corners to get there. So.
Right. The quality is important.
Yeah.
But and then distribution wise, was there a goal in mind? Like, we want to get into Whole Foods, or we want to get into Trader Joe's early on?
Yeah. I mean, every consumer packaged good company wants to work with the top retailers. And we weren't no different. For us, our early, like, this is something that when I talked to other entrepreneurs, that was really important for us, is in the beginning, like when we were like ground zero, like starting the business, like we had one KPI. It was just like getting into gyms.
Right.
And it allowed us to focus on just servicing that, and we weren't distracted by like retail. Like, we were just like, we're going to go door to door and do this. And that was really valuable for us. I remember like pulling our original cart and being like, can this even work in the grocery store? Like, doubting it, being like, I don't care. Like,
didn't matter at the time for you.
Yeah, it didn't matter. And like, I remember just being grateful to have a business, right? Like, I didn't, and that's another expression I use, is like when you get into business, like, your job is to like open your doors as wide as possible and make it very easy to do business with you, and be open-minded. And listen to your customers, and like follow those needs and be able to adapt to them. But most importantly, like, be very easy to do business with. So I mean, we've changed a lot. Like, this is the product we had 3 years ago. The cost, the packaging, just was different.
For sure, you could see that. Yeah. If anyone's listening to the audio of this, they should check out the video and see the packaging evolution. What advice did you get from your family members? I mean, because there's advantages and disadvantages to going into Trader Joe's, right? What did they tell you?
So my father was a pretty big mentor for Jared and I early on. And I think I don't think we would have the business today if it wasn't for this advice. Yeah. So like early on, like, I was influenced by other like entrepreneurs, the scene, whatever. And I was like, we need to like get a investor deck and go raise money to go to a manufacturer, to go to a design agency and hire all these people and orchestrate this business. But Jared and I had no money, right? So we're like, we need to raise money. And it was like, my dad was like, listen, I can't swear, sorry.
You can swear, that's fine. I'll just put explicit in iTunes, but
yeah. Sell $1,000 worth of product, and then think about like hiring a designer. And so it was very like, we didn't spend our time trying to like raise money. we spent our time just like selling product and making it, learning about it. And that was probably the most important thing. Like my natural reaction to starting the business was like, oh, I need help. Like I need people and I need like resources. But we were just like, you know what, that's actually, my dad was like, you don't know, prove it, like sell it. And we just did that.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot in the process. You know, that was the best advice we got today. And, you know, like we learned the craft. Like I was an outside, I was in the food business, but Jared and I didn't know anything about bars. We had to learn the process, learn how to formulate. We learned it all. And today we know everything about the business, and we didn't rely on anybody. Because if you pay somebody, they're not going to do as good of a job as you do, right? And that was like a very powerful lesson for us. And so it's like mastery of your craft. You know, like I'm a bar, like I know everything about bars. Like it's self-proclaimed, but like,
right.
But that's like, that lesson was really powerful in the beginning because I wasn't just trying to orchestrate this business, and I was actually just doing it and learning, putting each hat on and doing it.
Yeah.
So
Peter, what other great advice did your dad give you?
Don't care what other people think.
What was he referring to at the time?
Just like the noise, like, you know, like focus on
like
what you
naysayers, you mean? Like saying, why are you doing this?
Yeah, like, trust me, when I was telling people like, oh, the world didn't need another bar in 2013, right? That was really important. Just kind of like focus on what you want to do, and just like there's going to be negative people out there, but yeah. And the other thing is like be patient.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, because like when you're a young kid, you want to have a huge business, but it's like we had very humble beginnings. Like making product in our kitchen and selling it was not a glamorous thing. Like it wasn't. I mean, I was proud, but it wasn't something like, yeah, like I'm not going to get girls.
It only sounds good like 10 years later when your business is huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Not at the time when you're actually making the bars, yeah.
Like Jared and I were in hairnets, and we used to shave our arms, and like, because we wanted hair in the product, like that was not fun, and you had to be patient. And so it's like patience and planning are very important in growing a business. It doesn't happen overnight.
I wish I had a picture of that. Do you guys take pictures of you in hairnets?
Yeah, we have like
you
two.
Do?
They're like, my mother was like, we have to get a picture. And I was like, no, we don't need a picture. And I'm so grateful that she took that picture because like that's the only thing we got.
I love that. Well, if you send it to me, I'm going to put it on the post. If you want it on the post, that is.
I will.
Okay, cool. What should people watch out for distribution, like in Trader Joe's? Now that you've kind of navigated that a bit. Like there's obviously advantages, but what are some of the things that people should think about as a disadvantage?
I think the main thing is like view them as partners. Like they're an extension of you. Like when you think about the supply chain from like the farm to the retailer, like your job as a brand is to like make sure you take the product all the way, and like the retailer is the end of the supply chain where you're giving it to the customer. And so I view like every relationship we have as a partnership, and it's the same thing on the front end of the supply chain. And like have a mindset of like, how can I help them be successful, and therefore help us be successful there. I think that's an important mindset. Instead of viewing them as like, oh, like view them as partners, not like, oh, customer, how can I help you? But like, how can we win? How can we win together?
Yeah. How did you get into Trader Joe's?
It's a good question. I think the natural foods like circuit, so like the trade shows and whatnot. I can't tell you all my secrets.
But I have to ask them.
No, I mean we have a great team, and we have a good product. Our team was in a great position, and we've been fortunate enough to work with them.
Because
vague enough?
What's that?
Is that vague enough?
Do you have to be a certain size, do you think, to work with them? Like, were you waiting purposefully to grow to a certain point to approach them? Or, I mean, because obviously, if someone's going to go gym to gym, CrossFit-wise, you're not going to let this just be a passive process. Like, I'm just going to wait for Trader Joe's to come to me. I mean, I could see someone like you, like, calling everyone at Trader Joe's and figuring out how to navigate that. So, from a thought process standpoint, what point did you want the business to be before you approached them?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the brand and the organization has to be ready to handle an account like that.
Yeah.
And that's like part of patience, right? Like we would never been able to we weren't ready a year ago to do it. So a lot of it's timing. And another thing our team and I have learned is like like that hustle, like calling and like banging on doors doesn't work with big accounts. Like they're getting harassed all the time. Like It's not effective to like be a pest. However, that's like it's like as an entrepreneur, that could be your nature. Like that could work for a one-off mom and pop.
Right.
But that style doesn't work for these national accounts. Where like, at the end of the day, like they choose you, right? Like you have data on the product. You just got to make sure you're in the best spot to do it.
So Peter, what's your process for launching a new flavor? Do you have any on the like ready to go now, or that you can talk about? I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah.
Like for people who don't know, you've got maple sea salt, chocolate sea salt, mint chocolate, blueberry, coconut chocolate, peanut butter, pumpkin spice, coffee chocolate, apple cinnamon. What's on the pipeline, if you can say?
Yeah. Well, first question on the process. We develop like 5 flavors at a time.
You do?
Horse race. But yeah. Like R&D is like we're an R&D centric company.
Yeah.
And so my philosophy is like whatever best comes out of the kitchen or lab should go to market first. Like,
how do you determine best?
Well, you just taste, like sensory
taste-wise.
Yeah, sensory analysis.
So who's like the official taste testers? Like
we all. I mean, I have a pretty good palate, but we're making product every day, so we just share it. Get people, a lot of our customers too. So we'll send it out to like our friends, our community. Get opinion. At the same time, like when it's good. Like
yeah, you probably have customer suggestions.
Yeah, all the time, and we do surveys and stuff to get people's input. But yeah, it's fun. That's like the fun. Flavor innovation is the fun part.
So what's coming out now?
I don't know if I could say it, but
what's been the biggest rejection? What's been the biggest dud? Like you thought, like you mentioned bacon, right? What else did you think was going to work and just didn't come out well at all?
Bacon for sure was the biggest failure. Pumpkin spice, the first round was just like terrible.
But you stuck with it.
Yeah.
So something about it.
I mean, we're pursuing excellence with it.
What else besides those was just?
We made a cherry one that was tough.
Yeah, cherry is tough.
The thing is, we don't sell crap. Like if it doesn't taste good in the first version, the first round of R&D, like we're not going to move forward. God. Yeah, like banana bread, or like that. We did banana one. And like people like the idea of it. It sounds great, but like executing it with our product, it's not always easy.
Not good. Yeah. When will do you launch a certain time period? Like after we're developing after 6 months, or does it depend when the flavor hits?
Yeah, I say it takes about 9 to 12 months to get it from like conception to market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of
When
versions.
will the next one release? When will the next version?
January, February.
Okay.
I think February in that timeline. And I can't wait.
So many questions.
You got to come to our office.
I'm going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many questions. I know we only have 3 minutes. So I'm going to ask, since it's Inspired Insider, I always ask, what's been the lowest point? And then what's been the proudest moment? What's been the lowest point in the journey so far? Besides the hairnet.
I'm a pretty positive person. The low point would probably be my father had a heart attack.
Whoa.
So it's like a personal life issue overlapping with a very challenging professional issue. So my father had a heart attack, and then professionally, we just had an issue with some product in the market that we had to do we just voluntarily recalled it. We wanted to buy back the product. So it was like those two issues overlapped at the same time. And this is early on, like really early on.
It's a big hit, especially when you're bootstrapping the company.
Yeah, and you're not paying yourself shit. Like that happened. That was probably the lowest point.
Yeah.
But that adversity is good. Like my father's fine, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot of lessons. And
plus, he's not just a father, but he's a mentor in the business too.
Yeah. He's kind of like an earlier founder. Like, he was really helpful in the beginning. But yeah, so that was probably the darkest day.
How did you survive not paying yourself? Like, what were you doing?
I mean, we did, but it was just like not much. In the beginning, it was like I could barely pay rent for the first 3 months. But the good thing about our business, the way we grew it from like batch to sale, remember, we didn't collect we weren't building up an inventory, both on the raw material and the finished product. Mm-hmm. And so we were cash flow positive pretty quickly, especially for like, and I think the first 6 months we were profitable. And after that, we were able to like finally start paying ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear Dad's okay. That's the most important.
Thank you.
What about the proudest moment so far?
That's a good question. You know, to be honest, this is sound cheesy, but it's honest. Like, when I walk into the office and I see everyone like working happy, and like, it's like every day that makes me happy when I see our team happy. And then that's like just ongoing. But I guess if you're asking for a single moment, that's really hard.
What about a big sales day that you were like just pumped about?
Yeah,
what was that?
Mondays are great, but I don't know. The thing we always wonder is like talking about revenue. Like, there's no right answer. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the good? I feel like it's either too much or not enough, or like it doesn't. There's no good outcome of it. But sales are great, and when we get a new big key account, like those moments when we share them with the team are like definitely highs for sure.
I mean, I don't know if it was like, was it for you? What was the most exciting place that you got into?
I think Trader Joe's, just because it's national coverage, and they're an amazing retailer. Wegmans was another huge win for us. They're like best in class for sure. Like, all the wins are amazing. And then that's the key thing, is like to appreciate them, and like just be grateful as you grow. Like, not to be like, humility is a really important value of ours, and as we grow, like, that's something that's very important. And to remember the people early on that supported us is key as we scale. Yeah.
Peter, thank you. I can go on. I know you have a call right now. Everyone should go to RxBar.com. Check it out. Check out the design. Check out the product. Peter,
thank you.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the time.